Hello everyone and welcome to a truly impressive game from the just finished European Chess Championship, and the winner, as you guys probably have heard, is Serbian Grandmaster Aleksandar Indjic, and he didn't just win, he won with a 9 out of 11 score. That's winning all of the games and drawing 4. He went undefeated in the event, and that is absolutely incredible. 28-20 rating performance against some incredible opponents like Vladimir Fedoseev here in this game. So let's check it out and let's see why so many of you have recommended this game. Vladimir with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6, pawn to c4, e6, and knight to c3. Bishop to b4, Indjic goes for the Nimzo-Indian defense, and pawn to e3. This is the normal line, and this is the most common way to play against the Nimzo-Indian. We have castles, bishop to d3, the so-called bishop's attack, pawn to d5, and now knight to f3 and a3 are the top two moves here, but also you always have to know what happens if c captures on d5, which is in this case the third most popular option. E captures, and now knight to e2. We have rook to e8 and bishop to d2. And now retreating with the bishop d6 and bishop to f8, those are the two most common ideas, but here we have pawn to b6, preparing to develop the light square bishop, and notice that the knight still hasn't been developed, so you can go even bishop to e6 or knight to a6. The position, although a very rare one, has been played even between some very strong players, like for example Magnus Carlsen played it against Vishwanathan Anand in the Lindoris Abbey tournament of 2019, where Magnus won. Continuing with not rook to c1, Pragnananda played this against Martirosyan in one game. Magnus continued with castle's kingside here, but in this game we have knight to f4 by Vladimir, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. And interestingly, the move Magnus played, the move Prague played, and knight to f4 are the top 3 moves that the engine wants to play, and the engine says that all 3 are perfectly fine. So of course, definitely still within his preparation. And as I've turned off the clock times for the previous video, we could add them for this one, so sorry about that. Let me just add them real quickly. I know some of you really appreciate the clock times. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. It took a bit longer. But yeah, an hour and 20 minutes for Vladimir, and Aleksandar with an hour and 25. So let's see what happens. Pawn to c6. Completely new position, already spending 10 minutes on his next move. Aleksandar goes for pawn to c6, and it makes sense. You want to strengthen that d5 pawn. We have castles, and now bishop back to d6. We have rook to c1, all very standard moves that you would see in pretty much all of these similar games. And now bishop to b7. Also, you could consider definitely bishop to a6. Aleksandar goes for bishop to b7 first, pawn to f3, nicely controlling the knight, and also preparing a future pawn to e4, and pawn to c5 now. Putting pressure on white center, and slowly but surely opening up that light square bishop. King to h1, and now bishop captures on f4. So giving up the bishop pair to mess up white's pawn structure, and now with the loss of a tempo, bishop to a6. You don't want the white to keep the bishop pair. This way, both players will be without the bishop pair, and also you will have ruined white's pawn structure. Now, it seems like you could also capture on d4, but after knight e2, there's just no good way to handle this. You could try some knight c6 action to defend it, but then bishop to b5 pins the knight, then you play d3, and then it gets really complicated whether white's going knight g3 or you just capture back with bishop captures on d3. There's no really good way to make something out of this. So bishop to a6 by Aleksandar is definitely the way to go. Bishop captures, we have knight captures, and now pawn to f5. Freeing up the dark square bishop. We have knight to b4 and bishop to g5, pinning the knight on f6. We have pawn to c4. This is basically the Nimzo-Indian player's dream, creating an outpost on d3, and Aleksandar achieves it. We have queen to d2 and knight to d3. with an attack on the rook on c1. We have rook to c2, knight to b4, rook back to c1, and now knight to d3. And now it's hard to say whether Indjic was trying to get a draw by threefold repetition, as he is playing against a much higher rated opponent, or was he just testing him and then was planning on, playing something different at the last moment, but he doesn't get to find out, as Vladimir goes rook c to d1. He is the strongest player, he has to prove a point, and he does have the white pieces, so it makes zero sense for him to repeat the position here, even though you can feel that black has a little bit more than black should have on move 21 in the Nimzo. Pawn to b5. Now, okay, you can see that pawn to b4 is coming, but why is that pawn being sacrificed? Isn't just knight captures on b5 an idea? Well, yeah, but then you play rook b8, attack the knight. If the knight moves, then you have rook captures on b2, and it doesn't matter if a4, you can simply dislodge the knight easily with a6. So after b5, b3, again, makes sense to try and undermine this knight on d3, and rook to b8. Now again, preparing pawn to b4 and pawn to c3 once you figure out what you're going to do with the knight. We have pawn to g4, strengthening on f5, and now also preparing maybe to move the bishop, advance the pawn to g5, and queen to b6, unpinning. And it seems like you can capture on f6, and then if what can you do? If you capture with the queen, then d5 is hanging. Can you do that? Well, yes, but if you play that, then queen captures and knight captures on d5, queen captures on d4. White is just terrible here. What do you play? The knight is hanging, let's say knight to b4, you throw in a c3. You force a trade of knights, and after captures and captures, you have the passed c pawn to deal with. You will just move the queen, play b4, and then you will have a defended passed pawn, so this is, well, just losing for white. So after queen to b6, knight to e2, Vladimir finds the best solution, and now rook to b7. Preparing to double up on the e-file, we have bishop to h4, and now rook b to e7, not allowing any g5 ideas as the knight on e2 is hanging. And now, how do you defend? The only way to play would be something like knight to c1, maybe knight to f4 can hold. But here knight to c3 is played, and now the position is winning for Aleksandar, and I don't even have to ask you to pause the video because it's literally, it's always the same winning move, like that's what chess is about, pawn to b4. The knight is hanging, the knight has to move, knight to a4, attacks the queen, but now the d4 is left defenseless. Queen captures on d4, queen captures on b4, and now there is a beautiful way to finish the game here. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best move for Aleksandar while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the really awesome knight captures on g4, and that's what Aleksandar played as well. You could also play some rook e2 moves, you could play knight to e4, all of those are nice, but knight captures on g4, just offering the rook right away, is definitely the way to go. Because if you play f captures on g4, what's the idea? Well, the idea is just queen e4 check, king g1, queen captures on g4 check, and after king h1, now rook e2, and how do you defend against mate? You can play rook g1, but queen f3 check, and then after the rook moves, you're just going to checkmate the white king. So after knight captures on g4, bishop captures on e7 was played, as, I mean, what else are you going to do? And now knight g to f2 with check, nicely forking the rook on d1. You could capture, you could not, you could decide not to capture, doesn't really matter. King g2, knight captures on d1, and now queen to b5, getting the queen out of the pin and also attacking the rook on e8, threatening queen captures on e8 checkmate, and now knight back to e3 with check. Of course, not a rook captures on e7, then queen to b8 will result in checkmate. So knight e3 check, king to h1, and now, again, many moves can be played here. Aleksandar plays rook to f8. Absolutely beautiful. Bishop captures on f8, and now knight to f2 with check. We have king to g1, and okay, it's now forced checkmate. There are many ways to checkmate the white king, and in the game, mate in 4 was played. But there is an even faster way, and I'm only asking you, like, if you really want to improve your day, try to find the mate in 3 here. It's really gonna make you feel special. So have at it, while I give you a couple of seconds. So the move Aleksandar played is knight to h3 check, and that's actually a mate in 4, and there's no point in continuing the game after that. But the move that wins the game in 3 moves is queen to d2. Chess is sometimes funny like this, and I will show you why. Point is that now there is no move that you can play. Doesn't matter what you play. If you, let's say, play queen to8, you threaten some checkmating ideas. The threat is a simple knight h3 check, king moves, and of course queen to g2 will be checkmate. So why is this faster than knight h3 check right away? Well, because you can throw in an unnecessary move. Knight h3 check was played, king h1, and now queen to d2, and he was in this position on move 35 that Vladimir Fedoseev resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Well, you could be an annoying player and throw in a rook f2. That's why this is a mate in 4 and that one is a mate in 3. So, really congratulations to everyone if you found that out. If queen captures, it doesn't really matter. Let's say you play anything else. Now, any move with the queen will be checkmate. But yeah, funny stuff. Thought you guys might enjoy that. And yeah, big congratulations to Aleksandar Indjic winning the European Chess Championship. He is the official European champion. Not only that, he qualifies for the FIDE World Cup. Top 25 players from the European Club Cup, from the European Championship qualify for the FIDE World Cup, which is also a part of the cycle to qualify for the FIDE Candidates Tournament if you want to challenge the future World Chess Champion. So, could be nothing, could be, we might be seeing Aleksandar Indjic in the Candidates Tournament if all goes well for him. And he played this with a 2800 performance, 2820, which is, again, absolutely incredible. So, who knows where he might end up. And these are his opponents from the event. You can see that he won 26.1 rating points. Okay, first couple of rounds you could say that were not as tough, but I mean, try playing at this performance level. Every game is tough. And then from round let's say 6, lowest rated opponent was 2600. Chigaev, Fedoseev, Bogdan Daniel, Deak Chaparinov, Daniel Yufa, Daniel Dartha. So I mean, really tough opponents. And these are the standings. There were almost 400 players playing this event, 380 something, if I'm correct. I think it's 388. And yeah, there we have it. Indjic first place with 9 points, Dartha with 8.5, Velimirivic with 8, Ivan Chaparino with 8, Chigai with 8, Kacper Piorun with 8, Friedrich Svane with 8, Deak with 8, Yufa with 8, Hovhannisyan with 8, Motiliev with 8, Mateusz Bartel with 8, also Constantin Lupulescu. So everyone with 8, yeah. Very nice for Dartha that also he got second place as he's up half a point. And then, Dunchenko, Kosovsky, Osenir, Mamedov with 7.5, and so on and so on. There were really a lot of players here. So yeah, once again, big congratulations. Thank you for recommending such a beautiful game. Like I said, for everyone playing the Nimzo-Indian, and this is, as straightforward as you can get it. This is the main line, getting that pawn to c4 and knight on d3. That's, I would say that's the dream. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Robert Kiefer, Jeffrey Johnson, Yusuf Evelyn, Dan McCormick, and David Gasparian for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you haven't seen my Immortal game yesterday, do check it out. It's quite a game. See you soon.